Hey guys, Nick Dunham here from Strange Raven Outdoors. I'm coming to you from the Woods Runner School in Clinton, South Carolina, and today I'm going to show you why the Fire Viper is the best waterproof fire starter of its kind on the market. Stick around. Alright guys, so the first thing you'll probably notice about the Fire Viper is that it's much larger than your typical Tinder tube. I have no idea who makes this one. I had it in my fire kit, and um, it seems to be a pretty accurate representation of most of what's on the market. So let's compare this to the Fire Viper and see how that larger size plays into the size of the flame you get. I'm going to try to feed out about the same length of tinder from each fire starter. All right, I'd say that's pretty similar. Let's light these guys up. That one goes up no problem. Fire Viper as well goes up no problem, as we would expect. Okay, so as I'm sure is very apparent there, the Fire Viper has a flame, I would say, probably about at least twice as large, maybe 3-4 times as big as the other one here. While they've got these guys going, I'm going to go ahead and test the windproofing of both of these. All right, so I'd say both of them passed the windproof test. As you can see, I'm almost out of tinder over here, and my flame is dwindling, while the Fire Viper's still got a pretty strong flame going. I'll go ahead and extinguish these guys and move on to the next test. Oh, may not even need to extinguish that one, it's already out. All right, for the next test, let's see how easily these go up with the spark from a Ferro rod. I fully expect that each of these should go up pretty much as soon as I can get a spark on it. Now, the one major difference in that is going to be that with more surface area from the Fire Viper, due to the thicker cordage, it will likely be easier for me to get a spark onto the Fire Viper more quickly. So let's see how this goes. All right, 2 strikes there. It went up as soon as I hit it with the spark. I totally missed the first time. So that's about as expected. Let's see how our competition does in that regard. All right, this is just me missing, and as soon as I hit it, goes up pretty much instantly. So I would say these are both highly flammable, and they're gonna go up as soon as you can get a spark on there. Only real difference, as I said, I'm able to get a spark on the Fire Viper a little more easily because I just have a larger target. Our next test is going to be the waterproof test. I have inserted a fresh wick into our competitor because we were running a little low there. So I'm going to completely submerge these two, and we're going to see how they compare. All right, let's see if I can get these to light up, folks, after being completely submerged in water. I think we have a little bit, nope, a little bit of a flame there and it went out. All right, well, there we've got a flame. We can keep it going. And it went out again on us. So let's see how the fire viper does. Okay, we've got a pretty good flame there, and I'd say that is going. All right, and I just cannot get this other one to light. Well, that's pretty surprising. I thought I was going to do a little better than that. Cut off a little bit and see if we can get it to start up on for us. There, we've got a little bit of a flame. Not sure it's going to keep going though. All right, well, and that's out again. So I'm going to call that a fail on the waterproofing for our competitor there. Fire Viper's still going. On to the next test. Added bonus on the waterproof test, you guys. I was digging around in some of my stuff, seeing if I could find another wick for this guy to do the last test, because I can't even get this to light anymore after the waterproof test. And I found a genuine Uberleben Tindar Wick. So we're going to go ahead and do the waterproof test on this one too, see if it fares a little better than this guy did. All right, I'm just going to let that sit for a minute. Okay, let's see how this does. I'm hoping it's going to light up, because if it doesn't, I don't know how I'm going to do the last test. There we go. So we've got a flame from the Uberleben. So obviously the formula these guys are using, a little better than whatever this is. I would assume that as far as the flame size test, the ferro rod test, Uberleben is going to perform pretty much exactly the same. Flame size is about what you see right there, and I would expect it to go up with a ferro rod with no problem. So now that I've got this and it works, let's go ahead and do a wind test. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Well, I actually didn't expect that to go out. Would have been more scientific to do it before we did the waterproofing test. Maybe that's playing in there. But the Uberleben is not looking very wind resistant. All right, so it is what it is. Can't go back in time and start over and do everything with the Uberleben. I am losing light here though. So what I will do for the final test, since I would say this brand has totally failed, for the final test, I will be using the Uberleben Tindar Wick versus the Fire Viper, and we're going to actually start a fire here and see which one does better. All right, you guys, for our final test of the evening here, I've got two of what I would call pretty similar fire lays set up here. I've got some cedar bark in each of them as a tinder source, and then I've just got kind of like a small chaotic teepee going on here for our fire lay. So I am going to pour some water on each of these. And we are just going to see how our fire starters do. All right, so we've got the Uberleben here, and we've got the Fire Viper here. I've tried to feed out about the same length of cordage with each of them, and we're just going to see how they stack up here in a real world test. Uberleben starting out strong. I think my Fire Viper is a little smothered here. There we go. Now you can really see the difference in that flame size. Both of them struggling with that wet cedar bark. Looks like the Uberleben is nearing the end of its flame there. And the fire viper is about to get smothered by some fallen cedar bark. Okay, so the Uberleben is pretty much done what it's going to do. I would say that is burnt out. Fire viper, it's hard to see here because that cedar bark has fallen down, but we've still got a flame going in there. Open this up a little bit. There we go. Ow! If I can keep from totally extinguishing it here, which I may have just done. If I was smart, I'd have used a stick. So we've still got a flame going in there. That cedar's starting to catch. It's dried it out. Still pretty wet on the top, so I don't know if it's gonna have enough to get it going here. But it's still trying. As you can see, we've still got a flame there on the fire viper. At this point, I would probably start blowing on that huge ember in there, giving it some oxygen. Don't want to do that right now until the fire viper has gone out, since we're doing a test. And it looks like it's about done there. So let me see if I can nurse that into a fire here, guys. Well, there you have it, guys. I'd say that's pretty definitive. The fire viper had enough flame to keep that going long enough to dry out that cedar to the point where I can kind of nurse this a little bit and actually get a fire going. All right, well, I'm going to call that test done, and I would say there is a pretty clear winner right there. And it just comes down to, you know, bigger is better. Uberleben, this is a great product. I've carried one of these in my pack for years and years, but it just does not compare to the Fire Viper. All right, y'all, I'm gonna get out of here. If you'd like to purchase a Fire Viper, we have them available on our Etsy store. That's Strange Raven Outdoors at Etsy.com.